Good morning,
Hi,
sir.
we're live. My name's Rick, and this is
Dave. And we're learning languages.
just not very well.
No, slowly. So,
Um,
I,
another completely unscripted and strange um YouTube video, but hopefully useful for people eventually. What we wanted to talk about today was learning vocabulary. Again, we have the two methods where I tend to learn one language deeply, and Dave tends to learn a language or lots of languages more widely, lots of variety. So one of the things I wanted to talk and actually ask and interrogate Dave about was how does he remember um, vocabulary? How do you go through, I don't know, a teach yourself book or whatever it is you use for the initial resource to learn, say, check, and then remember all of that? And then how long does it take? What do you use? Flashcards, paper cards, Anki
me, I'm,
decks?
I'm a really old school. I started learning languages back in. I really started. The brunt of my language learning started around 94, 95, and that was before any iPhones, apps, any a lot of electronic resources. So I did books and I did flashcards, and you can get these little any kind of flashcard. I use they're VA rectangular, something on the translation on the back. Do it a million times. Also try to use the words in context rather than just learn single words. I would learn sentences, especially phrases like "hello," "thank you," "have you seen my duck?" And with each phrase, each sentence, you also learn. It reinforces, and it also helps. Because you can take a phrase, you can take out one vocabulary word, and theoretically just insert any other vocabulary word, of the same part of speech. And there was the Italian book I had, Italian slang, and it had some pretty colorful phrases. And I feel like if you took out some of the dirty words and put in sentences, so I could learn something dirty, but also apply it in a very social friendly. But a lot of it is just memorization and context. And there are also ways to mix, and they can very weird, strange, dirty, risque, very inappropriate mnemonics. But if it helps you remember it, all the better. Well, you do, Rick.
Well, mostly I used to use flashcards, paper flashcards, but since the advent of technology, I tend to use Anki decks for vocabulary because I can get audio with it, so I can hear somebody say it and read it off the card, and then test myself and all that sort of thing. And lately, I've been doing a lot of French for quite a significant amount of repetitions. In fact, I upped it to about 100 new cards a day last week, so that's becoming a bit of a pain. So I'm gonna have to ratchet that back. Um,
Oh, there, a second. For all of the who are calling in, what's an Enki deck?
All right. An Anki deck is a free bit of software, unless you own an Apple phone where he charges you a bit for that. But it's free on the desktop for Windows and Macs and on Android phones, for example. It's just basically a flashcard program. And you can get it at ankiweb.com. So it's ANKIWEB.com. I'll put the links to it all in the show notes. But yeah, basically you can use it to memorize movies, dialogue, everything. I mean, my daughter uses it to learn because she's a paramedic. She's learning, medication, side effects, parts of the body, all that sort of stuff. So anything you need to memorize, you can use Anki, and it's highly configurable and all that sort of thing. But I also do a lot of reading using Kindle. So I can look up the word and the translation as I'm reading. So a lot of reading to help my vocabulary.
Excellent, excellent. How far did you have to get before you could start reading
Well,
and then being vocabulary that way?
assuming you have a dictionary, you can start reading from day one, because you basically just look up every word you don't know, which initially is every word. But by the time you get through probably 50% of a book, you know, you're probably only looking up, say, 30% of the words on a page. And it gets fewer and fewer and fewer, because most common words are common. So they come up again and again and again. You know, if you were reading an English book, you're going to see the, and, he, she, it a lot. And you're going to learn out, you know, you can't help but learn because of the vast amount of repetition. So reading a book really is spaced repetition, but entertaining one. I think it took me a long time. I probably had to read probably 10 or 12 books, you know, in French, full-length books, before I got to the point where I could read and enjoy the book. So I got to the point where I knew, say, 90% of the words on the page, and so I didn't have to keep stopping and then trying to remember where I was and, you know, remember the storyline and all that. So I got to the point where I could just read a book and just read and enjoy the book. If I was going to give advice to somebody, I'd say start reading from day one. Get yourself a book. Doesn't matter if it's a kid's book or an adult book or whatever. Just get, or a newspaper. Just get a book and start looking up words.
Well, do you find that you have to have a solid foundation first, or do you think that languages like maybe French or perhaps Spanish or maybe one of the I dare not say easier, but ones that have fewer grammatical inflections, shall we say, it's easy to start without having the foundation in grammar, or do you feel that you had a solid enough in grammar to?
Well, the thing about grammar is you sort of pick that up as well, because, like, you know, when you were a kid, you didn't teach you grammar; they just corrected you. So lots of correct input will teach you the grammar. What'll confuse you? Well, what confused me initially is so, like, the verb changes, and it's the same in English. You know, I learned, I learnt, you know, that sort of thing. You went, that. So the verb is modified, and it doesn't even, sometimes it doesn't even look like the same word. Like in French, aller and va, you know, it just doesn't even look like the same word. But you keep looking it up again and again and again, and you eventually work out that it's just the verb mutating, and then you can sort of work out, well, why does it change? Oh, okay, well, this one is when they're talking about plural, like if there's more than one person, then they use this type of ending with the verb. And so you would eventually work it out. I mean, it's a lot easier if you just read a grammar book and they tell you, but you would eventually work it out. It's not easy. I do remember reading once, there was I can't remember, a story about some fella who went on holiday to some Greek island. He didn't speak Greek, but and all he found in his hotel room was a novel in Portuguese, and he didn't speak Portuguese. But because he was there for about 30 days and it was the only thing he had to read, he just read the whole book 2 or 3 or 4 times in Portuguese, and he effectively almost taught himself Portuguese, or at least to read Portuguese. Pronunciation was a bit more of a problem, apparently. But there you go. Dave, have you ever used anything like, you know, gold lists? I don't know if you're familiar. Are you familiar with gold lists?
My understanding is that you have a notebook and you write down, and then repeatedly, I think, spaced over the span of like a week at a time, I think, or a few days, and
yeah, something like that.
Eliminate.
You write down the words, and then the next week you write down the words you remember, and the words you didn't remember carry over to the next week, and you basically filter out the list so that you over time, you know, you might start out with 20 words, and then at the end it's the 10 that you didn't remember, you know, 5 that you didn't remember. And then you just keep doing another list all the time. But I didn't wonder if you had any sort of systematic, when you were starting out, because obviously you've done lots of languages, so when you're starting out and you have a basic common vocabulary that you need to know, you know, hi, how are you, blah, blah, blah. But what did you use any of that sort of thing, or was it just the paper flashcards that you mentioned?
It was mainly the paper flashcard. I used to write things in a note, but then I found that I had in a certain order that it became predictable. And so I would, if I knew that, goat, water in whatever target language, as soon as I saw water, I instantly would order. But if I recognize that, then it took me a lot longer to learn the words that I did visually. So I found it better to have cards you can shuffle, and I know there are a lot of things you can do online now with apps that do the same thing, but sometimes I just want something physical in my hand that I can flip through and have a little more control over. Yeah, so I usually don't do the lists. I haven't tried the gold list. I should try it out one of these days, actually. Help. But generally, I focus on vocabulary. Early on, I focus on vocabulary that is very useful, that I know that I'll use repeatedly, like hello, thank you, where, what, when, my name is, their numbers, directions, polite phrases, and those are the things that I focus on first, because I normally use them a lot, and I will, when I'm in a situation where that needs to be spoken, I will focus on using those phrases, and sometimes I will force a conversation to go where I know the vocabulary. So we may be talking about any number of things, but if I can inject any of my phrases, even just random words into a context, then that really helps reinforce it. And if I have any kind of awareness of what I'm going to be using the language for, I will study vocabulary for conversations I know I'm going to have, I think I want to have. So definitely the readings and the polite phrases, but also I want to talk about where are the bookstores in your town, or where can I see live music. And from those phrases, again, it's just a plug and play kind of thing where you say, instead of saying where can I see music, where can I see theater, or where can I see a good restaurant, if it comes to that. If I can't know the exact words I need to know, I can always just sort of force them into a sentence.
Well, I mean, part of the reason that I go deep in a language is because I really don't like the idea of being of speaking like Tarzan. Want food, where theater.
Me, cultured Tarzan.
Yeah, so so for me, I actually hesitate speaking. So I spent a long time where I didn't speak to anybody. I could quite happily go to France and read every sign and listen to every train station announcement and everything, but words didn't come out of my mouth because I spent so much time trying to rearrange it all to be completely grammatically correct that by the time I actually got something to come out my mouth, it was too late. That conversation was, like last month sometime.
Well, so there's a common debate that goes around in language learning circles. Which is better? Is it better to learn grammar or vocabulary? What do you say?
Well, personally, I say vocabulary better than grammar, because if someone came up to me who is an English learner and they came to and they asked me, I don't know, if they wanted to know where the train station was, for example, and they came up and they said, where is the and they don't know the word for train station, I can't help them. But if they came up to me and say, where train station be at? Oh, it's over there, down the road, turn left, blah, blah, blah. Because I understand, I understand their sentence. It's not grammatically perfect, and it's fine. I don't, it's not a problem, but because it's my language and I understand it, I can comprehend it. So it's not a big deal for a native if it's not completely grammatically correct. But vocabulary, in my opinion, is much, much more important, because when you want the thing, if you can't point at the thing that represents the thing that you want or need or have to have. So vocabulary is way more important, in my opinion, anyway, than grammar. You get grammar eventually, I figure.
I agree. Yeah, I think definitely need an arsenal of words to communicate. The not knowing the grammar does slow you down a little bit, since you are I'm fluent in, and where I'm just like, there, kitty cat, knife, and I'll say random things as long as I can kind of piece them together. And it's more a survival thing. I think for you, languages are more of you go deep. You do want to get involved and immerse yourself into a conversation, and so you really want to prepare for that. But how often do you find yourself in these survival situations? Do you ever get to that point, or do you really just use the language for fluid conversation? Is that your ultimate goal?
Well, I mean, initially, like when I first went to Italy, I didn't know enough Italian to do anything other than talk in survival mode, but I could get by, and I did all right. When I revisited a few years later, like I knew enough that I sort of had a conversation with this, there was this homeless fella in the metro who had a couple of dogs. I was quite interested in talking to him about his dogs because they were really very, very cute. Anyway, so I had probably a half-hour conversation with this guy about these two dogs, and and I sort of gave him some money and wandered off. But it allowed me the freedom to talk about something that was not, how do I get to here, or where is this, or do you can I buy that sort of food? And that, I think, is the accomplishment. I don't think I ever really need to be to the point where I could conduct business in French or Italian. I'm not going to prospect clients or do something, like be a salesman in France. God forbid. But it is nice to have a conversation that it is not Tarzan speak, and it is not, where's the restaurant? So,
well, you're missing out, because there are some really good restaurants out there.
Yeah, that's true. And Tarzan, all you want's meat anyway. Meat.
Point to your mouth. Ah.
me
So what are you working on now? Are you actively studying French and French vocabulary? Have you working into another language yet? What's your current language?
Well, at the moment, I'm just working on French because I've sort of got Italian to a level where I don't really need to maintain it so much. So I can speak to somebody in Italian. And I do occasionally get a call on Hello Talk or one of the other apps from an Italian, and I speak to them. But French wasn't sort of at that level, and I'm hopefully got to that level now. And in fact, I hope to do a presentation at the next Polyglot gathering in French.
Excellent.
That's a goal, but whether I'll actually manage to do that or not, or even if they'd accept me, I don't know. But I'd like to be at the point where I could communicate freely in French and not have to maintain it. So at the moment, it's all French all the time, more or less. I watch French films, French TV series, read books in French, and I do lessons, like not really tutorials, but on italki I have tutors, and we just do conversation practice. But I do quite like the idea of learning just a little bit of like Slovakian for the gathering, and even if it's Tarzan, enough to get by.
Yeah, I find that studying languages deeply is for communicating, and having the deeper conversations with the locals. But I also find that, as sad as it is that English is so widely spoken, it's nice to just have the down language and speaking of. When we went to Slovakia, we got to talk to some natives there, some locals who spoke Slovak, and it was really easy to start a conversation with Slovak and kind of disarm people and realize, hey, it's like this guy's speaking Slovak to me, even though he's an American. And then have the conversation switch over to English once things got different. I thought it was a nice door. But I definitely maintain Slovak, and I'm hoping to have a little bit more this year. Have you seen the non-Slovak speakers from the Polyglot gathering?
Yeah, I mean, the problem I see with that sort of depth of learning is that you sort of want more, and that's the problem. Like if you think, well, okay, I know how to say hello and all that, but I want to say more. I want to do more, and then that's the hook for me. That's the problem. Why are you choking the cat?
She was clawing me.
Oh, okay. She started it.
Oh, I didn't know how to say stop clawing me and cat. Parlez-vous chat? I don't know why. Sorry. Anyway, it's fun.
Sorry, does cat have a name?
Lily.
Lily, of course it is.
Sorry. This was planned. Anyway.
At least it's not cat.
No. Hey, cat.
What's cat in Slovak?
I don't know.
You could have named it. You could have named it cat in Slovakian.
My cousin speaks Slovak. She wouldn't understand.
Oh yeah, that's true. Oh yeah. Guys, she's American cat.
As far as we know.
Yeah. Well.
So what's your Slovak vocabulary? Do you have one?
I don't know any Slovakian vocabulary at all. Not even a word.
Did you have a goal for the next gathering?
Sorry, what was the question?
Oh, do you have a goal for the next gathering?
Yeah, to get there.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited. I'm hoping to go. I'm planning to go. So, and it should be fun. But there will be a lot. I think there is going to be more emphasis on speaking non-English languages. So, so I think we'll really have to ramp up. Like you said, you want to give a talk in French. Probably be more talks in other languages, and I would love to be able to understand. So I think now is a good time to start vocabulary.
Yeah. Well, if I knew what the ones they were going to do, I'd try and learn some of them.
Yeah. Well, they should do Esperanto. I know some people don't like Esperanto. I think it's probably the language, one of the easier languages to learn. It's universal, and it kind of puts everyone on even footing. No one's really a native speaker, so everyone would have to learn it to have a common non-English language for the gathering. So I may really
technically that's not true. Have you met Gavin? He's a native speaker of Esperanto, actually.
Name rings a bell.
Yeah, he was one of the organizers last year, and he's a native Esperanto speaker. Like his parents spoke Esperanto.
Well, yeah. He's not invited.
Yeah, he's too easy for him.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I actually have some resources for Esperanto, and one of the ladies on our forum is like the accountant for the British Esperanto Association and things, Claire. So I can leave some links to the show notes below for people if they're interested in Esperanto and some of the other languages. So does everybody know what Esperanto is? That's the other question.
For those of you who don't know, Esperanto is a constructed language that I think in the late 1800s, or no, maybe not far away, but maybe the guy was born, Zamenhof. He created this language to kind of unite nations and cultures and have just one common language for the whole world. And it's Latin-based, very regular, like all nouns end with an O, all end with an A. So it's the grammar, but it's not natural, and so I think some people do stiff or universal enough to learn. But I've got a here in Virginia, and he's very enthusiastic every week. So it's nice, but of course, yeah, be practical for everyone.
Yeah, there's lots of advantages to knowing Esperanto. They do travel things where you can go stay with other Esperanto speakers and things in various other countries. And there's generally somebody who speaks Esperanto somewhere around. There's apps now to find Esperanto speakers. Put that show notes. Is
that the one you're thinking of?
Which is it? What it's called?
Amimu?
Yeah, that's it. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's, yeah. I don't know.
Okay. I think I do
Probably
either.
mean cat in Slovakian for all I, you know.
Oh,
So, I mean, we've pretty much explored the vocabulary thing, and we've hit our time limit. But I do enjoy talking about vocabulary and language learners. But if anybody's watching this and has any suggestions for what we should talk about, or any interesting conversations you want to hear about, just leave them down below, and we'll be sure to talk about that later. So that's it for me.
all right. Great. That's it for me.
All right.
Thanks for watching.
Nice talking to you, Dave.
All right. Good to see you, Rick. I'll see you next.
All right. See you next week.